like to try to get this meeting started so that we could go over the schedule for you for the our plans for our split session, which is scheduled to begin tomorrow. Just want to make sure everybody got a copy of the schedule. We also are going to post it on the website, so if you, for those of you who are watching it via live stream, it's going to be up on the website if it is not already up there. Or if you end up not having your copy by the time you leave here this evening. Okay, so first of all, welcome. I'm very happy to see so many parents here. We wanted to just take this opportunity to talk to you about a few things related to trying to get us back in session and make up those days that we've missed now since the district has had to be closed. This is not, the purpose of tonight's meeting is not to talk about construction. It's to talk about the scheduling and what our plans are going forward. I'll try to give you as much information as I can about that. But I will tell you, in all fairness to you, it would be my plan to perhaps one night next week schedule a construction update meeting so that we can just talk to you about what has happened up to this point, what we think is happening, what we want to be happening, and when we're going to get our kids back in that building safely. Okay, I'm here to tell you, as the superintendent, I will not open that building unless or until it is safe for students and staff to occupy it. I'm telling you that right now. Having said that, we somehow now have to get our days in. And while this is not the ideal situation, the best that we can do is to go on a split session. And in a minute or two, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Bannon so he can talk to you about the high school schedule, and then Mr. Shore so that he can talk to you about the junior high school schedule. The only other couple of things I want to talk about, and then we'll all be available to answer any questions that we may not have answered after we've done our presentations, is just to tell you that as of right now, I did my 2-minute clip on construction. Right? We did have a construction meeting this afternoon to talk about just exactly where we were and how long it would take for them to make the corrections in the building and on the roof before we could safely occupy it. So what we're looking at in terms of this split session is at least through the end of November. So this is what we have been told. So it is short term. My guess is we can always be prepared, or should always be prepared, for some glitchy thing to happen that take us into the first or second week of December. But what I'm saying to you is this is a short-term fix. We certainly want our students back in the building. We want our seniors back in the building. They deserve to be back in the high school to enjoy their senior year. So we want that to happen for them as quickly as possible. But we want them to be safe and to remain healthy. So for right now, what I'm saying to you is, unless something happens that's unforeseen, we will hopefully be back in the building by December. So this is a short-term fix. I think there were some rumors floating around out there that it was going to be for the entire year. That's not where we're going. That's not our plan. Okay. So before I turn over to Mr. Bannon, I do want to talk to you about the 5 days that the district was closed. Usually when we're closed, it's because of inclement weather. We haven't even gotten there yet. And if you've read the Farmer's Almanac, we're expecting an interesting winter. So I'm trying to make some arrangements and looking at the school calendar for making up these 5 days that we have lost. It does involve meeting with the administrative team. It involves meeting with some parents, the union representation to work this out. But what I'm saying to you tonight is be prepared for us to be in session on some of those for half days in February when we have that long weekend, because that's an opportunity for us to pick up at least 3 days. That includes President's Day. So if I can get us in for half-day sessions, that's 3 days right there. I'm also looking at a day or two during spring break. One of those days could possibly be Good Friday for another half-day session, and then another day during spring break. So this is all tentative right now, but that's what I'm looking at, because if we get inclement weather and I'm shut down because of that, those days will be tacked on at the end of the school year. I just don't want us going until June 30th if I could help it. So just giving you a heads up in terms of where I'm looking to make up those days. So that was just an important thing that I wanted you to know. I'm going to turn this over now to Mr. Bannon, the high school principal, so you could talk to you a little bit about the high school schedule and the block and the alternating day that you see. And then I guess he'll turn it over to Mr. Shore, and then we'll all interact, I guess, at different times and answer any questions that you have. So thank you, and Mr. Bannon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Baxter, and thank you all for coming tonight. I know we met with a number of you last week, and I really appreciate you coming out again. So now, obviously, as we talked about last Friday as well, everything we're doing here is to try to make sure that the students' educational opportunities are the best they possibly can be, and really need your support and all of that. So seeing as many faces as we do have returning again tonight, or if you're your first time coming out, so you were here last night, still really do appreciate you coming out and joining us. We know, obviously, as we said, really is a team effort to make sure our students get what they need to the rest of this year. So we want to go over our goals that we have for the night, just so you know where we're heading. We're going to talk about what we've been doing in terms of the up-to-date programming, schools, and so on. So obviously continue keeping the lines of communication open, which I think we really have been striving to do with you all. Make sure you're in the loop, just as we were able to get facts. That's why we want to have the meeting on Friday and again tonight, and to address any other concerns you may have if we didn't have them. Just, one of the things that we did on this slideshow, as you see, is any of the questions that we were able to get answers to based on the questions that came up on Friday. We included them on here, but obviously we do anticipate you might have some new questions that came up as well.
Okay, first and foremost, thank you again, as Mr. Bannon said, and I'd also like to take the opportunity to any of the parents or guardians that may be watching on the live stream to welcome them to the junior high school. I'll talk a little bit about Monday, and I'll let Mr. Bannon elaborate on Tuesday. So on Monday, it seemed business as usual. We had a normal day here at the junior high school. The kids came on the buses, and we ran to our regular schedule. One of the things that we felt that was important, when I go back to one of the first things which I had told the students when we got back from that 5 days, is that whenever we need to be open and honest, we're going to do that. So we had grade level assemblies. We met with our 9th graders first, then our 8th graders, and our 7th graders, because we wanted to keep them in the loop about what the split schedule was, make sure they understand what a split schedule was, because we keep saying that term, but I want to know that they understood, at least the younger kids, that basically we were running kind of 2 half days. So we kind of explained that to them, and we tried to stress to them that we're going to show them what the split schedule looks like. Now, I know that's easier said than done, but kind of not to stress out because, it's going to take some adjustment, but just like anything else, as you see it and you go through it more, it'll become more of the routine. So we met with all those grade levels in the first 3 periods of the day. We kind of roughly went over what the schedule looks like. And, certainly we're going to have those ongoing conversations with the students and the staff, on what that looks like. So that was kind of our day on Monday. And the high school staff was in, and they were working diligently down in the media center. I'll let Mr. Bannon explain today, because the high school came back to the junior high school today. So I'll kind of give Mr. Bannon his oversight of how that day went.
Well, before I talk about today, yesterday, while the staff was here, we actually put in the work. They initiated their Google Classroom pages to learn or use them to activate their continuation of education plans. And it was actually pretty interesting as we saw that how many students were interacting live with their teachers. I know some of the parents were commenting on that and gave us feedback, which is great to see, because, Google Classroom, one of the great things about it is it doesn't have to be live, but it can be, because, teacher gets a notification as soon as the student does submit something. So the teachers, while they're here throughout the day, we're seeing that the students were actively engaged, doing their classwork and trying to get feedback, which was great. Because even though they were not here, we were trying to, obviously continue on the best we can with those educational practices. And then today we had our students come here. It's a little different for them. They're trying to, get their bearings on a new building, new teacher locations and everything, and a slightly adjusted schedule for us, but it really went very well. Had lunch here, had our meetings with our students as well, with our seniors, and then went from there. Answered as many questions as they had to, because again, the questions aren't necessarily just coming from you, they're coming from them. That's why it's so important for us to meet with the students and answer their questions and address them as much as we can. And similar, like we told you last week, if we don't have the answers, we're going to try to find them, and so exactly we told the students as well. and it really seemed to ease their concerns. And honestly, it was funny seeing a lot of the kids come back and say, I never expected to come back in this building, but it was kind of that comforting sense as well.
And in the junior high school, I know it was kind of refreshing, if we can, a positive note, to see a lot of the upperclassmen that you haven't necessarily seen in a while. It was great to see those. I know there was a lot of interaction with the high school students and the junior high school teachers, because our staff was in today on more of a professional day working on their Google Classrooms and things of that nature. So it was real cool to interact with those guys on a full school day as opposed to at something. So one other thing which I would like to add, which I did not mention before, as part on Monday, we had all of the junior high school students at about 1:40 in the afternoon report back to their first period class if they were ninth grade students or their homeroom, because it's important to know that all of the junior high school students, grades 7 through 9, were issued new bus passes. So they have new bus passes with an abbreviated, possibly a bus or a time. So please, at the end of the meeting, if there's any reason that a student did, I know I talked to 1 or 2 parents already about some bus concerns, that will be around, and hopefully we can address those before school tomorrow. Okay.
That's one of the things we went over with the staff today too, Mr. Shore, or the students rather, because even though that the start time isn't necessarily changing for the high school students, their transportation pickup time is being adjusted by 3 minutes. So we made sure that all students know to please get to your bus stops 3 minutes early, and that should be really the only change that will be impacting them, at least for their morning pickup.
Yep, and just so everyone is aware, so we did have our A-Day B-Day rotation, but tomorrow we are officially starting the split schedule for the district. So that's Wednesday, October 18th, we will begin. So the high school will begin. We're going to go over those schedules now, but I know that's important, that it's officially a go.
So this is exactly what the high school split schedule is going to look like. Notice we have the A-Day, C-Day. So on the A-Day, which will be tomorrow, the students will have 1, 2, 5, and 6. And on the C-Day, starting Thursday, they'll have 3, 4, 7, 8. Notice on here as well, it says that students will have the ability to get breakfast. So when the high school students get here, the cafeteria will be open. It will be serving breakfast for them. They, however, will not be getting lunch. So you notice the high school day ends at 11:34, with each of the classes lasting 1 hour. At the 11:34 time, the high school students are going to leave and get back on the buses that the junior high school students just came from. So we actually are having a whole holding pattern in place where the junior high school students, I believe Mr. Shore, are going to go in the cafeteria or the gymnasium. So to try to make it, they're getting here, as Mr. Shore will show you on their schedule, a little bit earlier. We'll be holding them here. That's why we really can't have the high school students come and get lunch and so on. But as I said, they will at least have the opportunity to get breakfast before they leave. Now, the those students will still have all day, they'll have the first 2 classes each day. Then they'll go, they will get lunch still. And any of our students that are going to have an early leave, they'll have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 5 and 7 will be study hall for them as well. And then they'll leave at that time, which puts them at their normal leave time throughout the day.
Okay, let me talk a little bit about the junior high school schedule. And again, I don't want to say it's more complex, but there's a few little twists and turns, so to speak, for the junior high school schedule. So certainly, as you sit through this and you have the questions digested, we'll be around, myself, Dr. Clark, and Mr. Denning, to answer those questions, okay? So the first thing which I want to start off is that we decided to go with the green day and gold day at the junior high school. The reason why we did that is, one of the reasons why we did that is that the students are used to our A-Day, B-Day schedule, which I talked about the last time would have to do with the math apps and the language arts and literacy, that we didn't want to get them confused. It's going to be a little bit confusing as it is and a time to adjust, so we decided to go with a green day and a gold day. So tomorrow will be a green day for the junior high school students. Now, I want to bring your attention to the actual drop-off time and when that first rotation starts, because it says 11:25 to 11:35. And let me give you kind of a brief explanation what our thought process is with that. So after the last meeting, one of the things that we heard and they had concerns about was having the older high school students in with the younger junior high school students. So one of the things that we decided to do is pad that a little bit. Now, that also gives us the opportunity to get the students in. If they need some extra time for help in the morning, if they need to go see a teacher, it gives us a little flex time to do that. If they have to, get some extra time for extra work. So that's why we have that. So let me explain to this is how it's going to work tomorrow. So usually on a normal day, all of our 16 to 18 buses line up and they stay parked in the front of the junior high school until about 8:05 when the bell rings. We then come in as one unit. We're not going to do that, okay? So when those buses arrive at the junior high school tomorrow, they're going to drop the students off, the junior high school students. We're going to utilize the entire cafeteria and the gymnasium. So all of the junior high school students will be in the junior high gymnasium or cafeteria. Again, it gives us a little time. If they want to purchase a lunch sandwich, they can do it at that time. But they're kind of going to be like two holding areas. We spoke with our staff today. We probably have anywhere, besides the administration, 15 to 18 staff members who will be covering the cafeteria and the gymnasium, in addition to some of the high school staff. The high school redid their duty. So we make sure we have these large areas covered. So we'll have the junior high school students here. We will get all of the high school students out of the building because we have to use the same buses. As soon as the high school students are out, then we will have the junior high school students go to the locker, see the teacher, continue to eat, things of that nature. So I don't want you to think that this is going to be all free time. We tried to make as many accommodations within our working schedule to address those issues of having students having time to get work, go to their locker, not mixing in with the high school students. So those are all legitimate things, and we wanted to take those into consideration. Now, this is one of the caveats here, which might be a little confusing. I'm going to do my best, and there's another slide which will hopefully clear it up, but let me try to explain it to you first, okay? One of the things, since all of the junior high school students are coming in at the same time, one of the problems we faced is that if you're a high school student, you're on an 8-period day. If you're a junior high school student, you're on a 7-period day. So we have everyone in at the same time, so we had to try to make everything work out and be balanced. So what we did is, in the beginning of the day, on a green day, and this rotation only happens on a green day, all right? The gold day, that schedule is static. That will stay the same. That does not change. But on a green day, we are going to rotate through every class every time a green day occurs. I don't expect you to get that right now. Hopefully the words are a little muddy. I'll try to explain it and show you what I mean. So one of the things tomorrow, as soon as the high school route and we get to, we move about our schedule, if you're a 9th grade student, you are going to go to period 1, okay? So you're going to start off with period 1. When the 7th and 8th grade students go to their class, they're going to go to period 12. Now, when that period is done, the 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students are actually going to stay where they're at, and they're going to have that class for 2 hours. So that rotation is going to rotate every green day. So at some point, their class, whether it's period 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, eventually they will have for 2 hours when it pops up in the rotation. So again, it kind of addresses some of those issues. If a student needed some extra time, if they were falling behind and needed to get some extra work done, at some point in the rotation, they're going to be in every class for 2 hours, okay? Period 2, period 3, and then you'll notice kind of a little out of the box down here. Again, we have homeroom at the end of the day. So why is homeroom at the end of the day? Again, it's only 20 minutes. But again, any time that we can offer our staff and students to get with the students if they need extra help, extra time, try to catch up with the teacher, because we felt it was important to the program that we not look to cut anything in the afternoon. If students are leaving early, okay, they're not missing an academic class, so they're missing a homeroom. So we try to address all those issues so that we're keeping the kids maximizing their class time. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But certainly if you have questions afterwards, I can answer those more on a one-on-one. And then they would be dismissed at 4:30. Okay? And then when we come in on Thursday, okay, it will be a gold day. They'll drop off. We'll do the same procedures. Then they'll have their 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, and 9, 10, period 11, homeroom, and then dismissal. Okay? So one other thing which I want to address, because we have, as part of the junior high school schedule, we have our language, arts, literacy, and our math application classes. So again, that posed a little bit of a challenge with us because those are on A day, B day rotation, which we kind of had to come up with a plan for that. So the plan for that is that the teachers did a great job working, communicating with one another, okay? For the students, they are always going to default to their, and this pertains to the 7th and 8th graders, to their A day class. So they're going to report to their A-day class anytime they have math apps or language arts literacy. And then at the midway point, the teachers are just going to swap classes. Okay? So they will go back and forth. They will swap. They'll go to the A-day. When it's halfway through the period, they'll switch and go to the other class. And then certainly when those come up in the rotation, they'll be together for 2 hours. Okay, so you're looking at an hour for each, probably if they split it. Again, I'm sure you're going to have questions about that, but certainly we can answer those, in the end. Now, this is kind of a graphic that we put together, maybe a little bit easily visually to see what that rotation looks like. So this is tomorrow's schedule as it goes by, as we have it laid out. So 1 and 12, they're going to meet, okay? Period 2, period 3, dismissal. Gold day static, never changes. On Friday, I'm sorry if I'm sitting in your way, we then rotate, the entire school will go to period 2, then 1 or 12, 2 and 3. Okay, so there is your classes where they meet for 2 hours. Okay, then when we come back in on Monday, it's a gold day. Tuesday would be a green day. We would start off with period 3, 1 and 12, 2 and 3. So that one is always moving. Now, one of the things which we talked about doing is that when we had our A-day, B-day rotation, we had the letters posted in the front windows. So we intend to do that for the junior high school students to see, so they know when they see the number 2, that means that it's going to be the rotation. Okay, so those little things, announcements, it's on the calendar and things of that nature. So anything that we could do to help ease that process, we're going to try to do that as well. Okay, but that's kind of the breakdown right now, without getting too long-winded, of what the junior high school schedule looks like for the split sessions. Okay.
Okay, one of the questions that came up last week was about the medication from the high school. All medication from the high school were brought over to the junior high offices. We want to make sure you're aware of the junior high office information for the nurse, for the main office, and for guidance. So please make sure you do realize that these are how you can contact, since obviously the numbers that were in existence that contacted you in the high school are no longer going to be operational for the time being.
Okay, just some other things to report on. We did get the official word today that we will continue to run 2 late buses. All right, so the 5:30 bus is going to stay the same. That's been in place. That's how it's been throughout the school year. But we did add, in addition, another late bus, which will run at 6:45. Okay, so that gives the sports teams, the clubs and activities to give that option. Certainly to have, a little bit of time after school if they need the extended time to do that. So again, I know it's trying times and stressful situations, but again, those after school activities, we feel are important. Obviously, academics come first, but as much normalcy as we can keep in our day, we decided to keep that. So luckily enough, we are able to run, the two late buses. Okay, and again, certainly as the drama ramps up, as Mr. Bannon can attest with the high school drama students and their production around December,
It's one of the things actually we're working on with drama, since that was another big question. We're working on a couple of contingency plans. If we can't have it here, we've already been in contact with another organization, another facility that looks like they're actually willing to potentially donate us their facility. So we are certainly going to make sure our fall play goes on. That's not a problem. We're working on finalizing those details if that need be, but we're still up in the air. The one thing I want to go over real quickly too is make sure you realize that practices are later, so that students will not be pulled out of class for any sort of sports practice. All the practices are being scheduled for once the junior high schedule is over, and that's why also the late bus is when it is. So they will go to that activity, that time as well.
Yeah, this is a great time for me to jump in. We're talking about alternate locations. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. McCooley and the Board of Ed at Little Lake Harbor, because they have given us blanket use of their facilities in the event that we need to have band practice or play practice, or drama club has to be there. So I really want to publicly acknowledge them. I also received a phone call from the superintendent at Central Regional, Dr. Parlapanides, and I'd like to thank him. He offered his space and anything that we need up there as well. And I know the gal's first name is Raquel, the dance studio, the person who owns the dance studio here in town, and I apologize, I don't know her last name, but Molinaro. publicly a thank you to you, Raquel, because she has offered also her space. So everybody has stepped up and has been willing to help us and give us time and space when we need it. And really, this is a great opportunity for me to publicly thank Dr. Stevenson for stepping up in my absence, for this entire administrative team. The admin team, the staff, teachers, parents, kids, everybody has stepped up. Everybody understands that we're in a tough situation and we just have to make the best of it. So I really want to take this opportunity to thank everybody who's just really, literally stepping up and doing what needs to, getting everything done that needs to get done. So let me turn this back over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Banks. And I know as far as the practices start, the junior high school is probably in a bit different situation as far as the athletics goes for the 7-8. We're kind of towards the end of our season. So I know we have to make some, accommodations and finish up with probably, I would say, anywhere between 4 to 6, maybe 7 games left. It could be less. And then the conversation's been going on with Mr. Sonderman on what, that winter sports looks like. And certainly, as Dr. Banks said, with the donations of facilities, because you have basketball, wrestling, things of that nature. So those really kind of the focus now is we've got a kind of a plan in place and what does the winter season look like. So.
One of the big questions that came up too was about the high school lockers. And at this point in time, no students or staff are going to be in the high school. So we still don't have a way right now to get into the high school locker, but that doesn't mean that we will not get away. It just means that right now you can bear with us a little bit longer as we try to figure that out. I know we talked to the students today and explained to them, obviously, that there aren't going to be any lockers available from the junior high. They were very understanding, especially appreciative that they can wear backpacks, which is traditionally a rule that they cannot do in the junior high. But the students were very happy to at least know that they had the ability to use those, and that comforted them since they were not going to have the locker locations during that abbreviated time while they're here to begin with.
Okay, jumping in again here, because that was one of the things that I was making a decision about in terms of the lockers at the high school. Because the building is closed, we're not letting kids in there to get things. And so what I'm proposing that we do is have our students create a form for the students, have them fill out what they need out of their lockers, what their locker number is, and then we will make arrangements to get those things for them. I understand somebody left their wallet in a locker, and there's a live paycheck sitting around someplace in a locker. So we get it. You want to get to your stuff, but I'm not going to let a kid into the building while it's closed. So that's my proposal, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Dr. Banks.
Ooh. Where's that game you got to touch? You owe me something? Yeah, okay. Okay, are you good with that, Mr. Madden? Did you touch on?
Oh, real quickly too, we are going to have supervised drop-off for the junior high school students. So we're actually using the cafeteria as our study hall while we were here. We actually put additional staff from the high school. That way, if any of the junior high school students get dropped off early, that they'll go in the cafeteria as well. And obviously, that was a bit of a hardship. Some people mentioned, depending on how the day was going to go for you as well, depending on if your kids being home.
Yeah, and I'd really like to thank Mr. Bannon and the high school staff and the administration for offering to do that. Just like we had to kind of rework all our duty schedules, they reworked their duty schedules. So, like I said, if there is a situation, because we traditionally we would have a large amount of students, fairly large amount of students, primarily in that 7-8 time range that got dropped off early. So they reworked their schedule, and the high school staff will be in here supervising the junior high school students. Certainly, if they have to be dropped off early, they'll sign in and identify themselves in case that we need emergency purposes or things like that. But thank you guys for being flexible and doing that.
Least we could do for you, letting have use of the building, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes, you want to go back one?
Go back, sorry.
Couple of important things real quickly too. Senior parking, as we talked to the students about this today too, they are still parking in the high school parking lot. We are working with our SROs to supervise them crossing over, as our staff is also doing the same thing. So they still certainly have access to the student spots in the high school parking lot. And homecoming was a big question as well. And yes, we are still having homecoming. It is scheduled for not this Saturday, but the following Saturday in the gym at the junior high as of right now. As Dr. Banks said, we're still undetermined exactly how long, but at least she gave you some indication in terms of our max length right now, what we're looking at, and in terms of the school calendar. And one of the big things we're still working on is the AM vocational students, which I know is a question that really is going to have to be something we're going to be determined on a case-by-case basis on individual needs. We're really communicating nonstop throughout the day with the locations to try to see what we can do in terms of flexing student schedules and different things that we can provide from here. So I said that really is going to be come down to an individual situation to meet their needs.
Wait, excuse me. I have a question about the AM location.
We'll get to the questions at the end if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Okay, just so anyone knows too, at the conclusion of our meeting and any questions or anything they may have, all right, there will be a meeting for anyone that, any student or parents that qualify for special education services. Immediately following this meeting, it will be in A103, which if you go out of the junior high school cafeteria and make a right, it's one of the first classrooms, or it is the first classroom right there on the right, okay? So just an FYI. Okay. It's go time.
So just like we
Yep.
did during our last parent meeting, we do have, Mr. Denning and I have microphones. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We will come to you and we will go back and forth so that you can ask questions and that everyone can hear them.
What kind of mess is this? You got the microphone. I just need a little clarification. With the AM vocational students, I know you said, or earlier in the phone call message, it said that once they got their attendance on the bus, they were to come into the cafeteria. But also the junior high school students are going to be in the cafeteria. Is that still the same, or are they going to be in a different location now?
No, it still is the same. We anticipated the overlapping, and we have designated a section of the cafeteria since this are being used for a study hall. So the AM vocational students will join the study hall. Everyone awake? All right. So we anticipated that. So that's why actually the section over there is really being used for a study hall. So the AM vocational students will join them until they leave for the day.
I have another question over here.
Regarding the locker clean out, if I can make a recommendation perhaps, with the different sections and different floors, a little lower? How about that? Excellent. So regarding the locker clean out, can you consider an evening supervised each section or floor level when students can come in to clean out their lockers? It's probably going to be much faster than reading a piece of paper and going to each individual locker. So if you would consider maybe designating a time after hours supervised to clean out those lockers, it's probably going to be much faster than the single piece of paper.
We'll write down your suggestion and put it on our list. Just so you know, like we did last time too, Mr. Molesky is writing down all the questions and all the notes that parents are giving us suggestions, so we can use that as we're trying to get different information to you as well.
Hi, I just wanted to know, my daughter plays field hockey, so that season's still going on. So what are we doing? Because those games are scheduled at 3 or 3:45. And I have a freshman who'll be on the junior high school rotation. So how are we addressing that?
So if it is a freshman, if it is away games, and if that be the case, certainly we understand that. So we're looking at right now that if they are a freshman, or if it is a 7-8 away game, to meet those times, we're looking at probably about a 3:05 dismissal for those students. So they would be excused on away games, so they can, make the bus and things of that nature. So hopefully that answers your question. So.
It'll just not do the classroom for them after that?
It could be, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Yep, I got it. I can put some up here. Okay, got it.
All right, how you doing? So with the AM vocational students that go to AM Vo, when they come back to the school, you're sending them home.
That's only for the time being. Look at the note that was sent home. We're working on some things. I said it's going to be really on a case-by-case
She's
individual
missing
basis.
school all this time. Working on something and her actually getting an education. That's two different things right now.
I understand. We're having something in place so we can discuss an individual level after the meeting as well.
What about moving them to PM though?
That is one of the things that someone has mentioned, if you didn't hear it, they were talking about moving students to PMVO. We actually have been talking to them, because that's obviously not just an our determination. That's a lot to do with transportation, on those availability and things like that. We've been talking to the nose superintendent to see if we can make allowances and seeing how it also adjusts to the schedules here. So honestly, it's been something that we're really working very hard on.
Yeah, thanks. I'll jump in on the PMVO issue. One of the things that I spoke with Mr. Hoey, who is the superintendent of the Ocean County Vocational and Technical School District, and he is prepared to help accommodate us by switching kids to PM if we need to do that. We do have issues with transportation that we need to work out in the event that we do that. That's an option for us as we're looking at that as well. So anybody have a question about a vocational question?
Yeah. So what are they supposed to do in the meantime if they're not going to get an education, so they're supposed to just go on Google Classroom tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Monday, they can sort of end. What are they supposed to do?
Aren't they coming in?
Correct, they're still coming in, they still go to Mo. One of the things we're certainly working on with them is obviously making sure they still have availability on Monday, the Google Classroom platform, as we're trying to put additional things in place. So it's one of the things that I'll be honest with you, credit to Ms. Kenny and her guidance department, that they really have been working very hard on trying to see what adjustments can be to student schedules, talking to Mo to see which students, as Dr. Banks indicated as well, if their schedules can be flipped and everything like that. So it may only be another day, but it's one of those things we're really working very hard on to try to get an answer for you, because it really comes down to, as we look into, so many students have such a unique schedule to try to make it work for them. It's becoming a little difficult, but trust me, we are going to put something in place that's going to make it. We're not going to have any student not be educated. Right. No.
I just wanted to interrupt. I'm Mrs. Kenny, in charge of the guidance department, and my 4 guidance counselors spent the day going through every PM vocational student with their transcript and the report card and the schedule, trying to make some adjustments. And there are a few variables that we're working on. One would be staying later in the school day for those PM vote students. I mean the AM, I'm sorry, I'm flipping it. PM is perfect, they're all working out great. So the AM comes back at 10:50, and there's only like 35 minutes left in the day. So we're having a few options of either A, staying after school and having teachers here to provide tutoring services in different classes for the students. B, looking at some outside tutoring that, you know, if someone couldn't stay after school for that time frame. C, looking at vocational school of changing it across and saying, okay, we're flip-flopping the vocational program. So there's multiple things that are happening, but each kid has such a different, unique schedule that the guidance counselors are going to start working with them tomorrow to go over some of the questions and figure out exactly what's best for each student. And each vocational school has different programs, and they don't necessarily have exactly the same program in the morning that they have in the afternoon. So that's why it's not a blanket statement. So I do realize that you're frustrated and waiting to figure out what's happening, but I can assure you that my staff is really working hard on it, and none of our students are going to be left behind. We're going to make sure if we have to provide extra tutoring later on throughout the year, whatever we need to do to make sure that our vocational students are taken care of, because we have a commitment to them, and we want to make sure that they also get the vocational training as well. Sometimes flipping everything around is so disruptive to that student that it's actually worse when it's just a temporary thing. So that's why we want to meet with each student individually on that case. Thank you.
When you switch them to PM, they only have 2 hours in the morning for classes. They're still not getting all the classes. Okay. Because my son's 504 is not set up for this. So everyone has a vocational program. Karen, you have to use the microphone.
The question was if we flipped their schedule, and as I'm saying right now with the shortened day, everyone that goes to vocational school is leaving at certain times. So if you look at the morning schedule, it's 1-2 on the one day and then 3-4 the next day. So someone that was leaving in the afternoon would not miss any of their morning classes because they're having 1-2 and then 3-4. But if they were across the street in the high school, every day they would leave 35 minutes early and miss one of their classes on an A day, a B day, a C day, and a D day. So that's why it's so challenging. Vocational school, we're not in charge of them, and they have multiple locations, and it's an outstanding program and opportunity for our students, but we also are the furthest south. So we have students driving all the way to Jackson on a bus. So it is complicated as far as trying to manage all that. And I can assure you that we're working really hard to make sure that we get our students to the vocational programs. We don't want to take away an opportunity from a student. So if we have to provide extra tutoring and outside services, we will do what we need to do to make sure that all of our needs are met for our students. But as you can imagine, we're juggling multiple locations of vocational schools. It's not just one location. We have Waretown, Brick, Jackson, there's multiple places. So it's not, and we have AM session and PM as well. And then some students are full day. There's quite a few things going on there. So as we said, we will definitely be working on an individual basis because it's not the same for any of the students. Everyone has a different requirement of what they need. Any other questions for vocational students?
Hi, one question I wanted to ask is there a potentiality for like a mobile classroom setup to be done, especially for the AM vocational students? So when they come back on the bus, they can go into a trailer or something with their teachers for these specific days so they can get those classes that they are missing? So
that's absolutely something that we were working on, that we do have a Chromebook card and that they already have their Google Classroom. But their specific teachers are teaching throughout the day or other places, so it would be other different teachers that would be certified in that content area because they do have a half hour that they're here before they leave. So that is absolutely one of the things on the table to try to arrange that. And while they're at vocational school, half day, AM or PM, every single student receives instruction in math, science, and English as well on their VO matrix. We prefer to have our English, math, and science here, and many other school districts will use the VO matrix. But we absolutely, our students are receiving math, English, and science at vocational school. All three of those courses, in addition to their vocational training.
Yeah, I do understand that aspect. Basically, they're getting double taught in their subjects and such. But I have a child who is special needs. He has ADHD and Asperger's. And asking him to go home and do the Google Classroom.
Right. Well, that's why we're trying to provide after
right.
school.
If I don't take his remotes away for his Wii and his Xbox and all this other stuff, there's no guarantee that he's going to do what he's supposed to do. And for him to get the proper education that he needs a classroom setting.
Right,
Which
and
I'm sure there are multiple other children that have this issue.
No, absolutely.
He has the 504 and everything else all set up to have the additional time to take tests and everything else. But kids like him need the one-on-one with the teacher, not something over a screen.
No, that's why we were trying to say that we're offering multiple options, and that's why the guidance counselor will be working with certain students. Some students will be staying a longer day here probably and working in individual classroom. Other students might be using the Google Classroom on their own. And that's why I was mentioning that each student is really unique and does have different needs. So that's why it will be done on an individual basis. Yes.
Hold on, I'm going to give you the mic. I'm sorry.
When will you be determining that?
They're going to actually start working with all the students tomorrow.
Okay.
Remember that we have all the information as far as what classes they need and everything else, but there's a few variables that are still in the air. So we have everything organized by the guidance counselors, and then they're going to start organizing what are we doing with each individual student.
Thank you.
I have a son who does the extended, he's a super senior, and he does just go in the morning. Now, he also doesn't drive, so they bus him home, and I work full time. So now if Bo is getting back at 10:20, and they're not getting dismissed till 11:34, how's that affecting him?
All students that are back here, and if he doesn't have a vehicle and can't be signed out, then he would stay in the study hall in the cafeteria. And Mrs. Loomis, our attendance officer, she signs all the students back in to make sure, and we'll take attendance. Any other vocational questions?
I have a different question over here.
Regarding sports programs, the upcoming season for fall, how are we going to have sports programs for high school and junior high school and only utilize just this gym?
Well, I think that one of the things, Mr. Wilkinson, is that part of our conversations today, and I think Dr. Banks touched on a little bit, is Little Egg did offer up. They shared their entire calendar with when their facilities would be open. I know that probably in some conversations with Will about any of the other places in town that might have a large space for holding a wrestling event or gymnasium, basketball and things of that nature. So that's kind of been talked about right now. I don't have the exact answer where those would be, but, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sundman's here.
So
I was so focused on Mr.
That was a great answer. So, first, Dr. Banks and all of us hope that we're back in the high school by that time, and that is the start of the winter season is right around the time that we're hoping to be back in there. The official start for the NJSIA for the winter is November 27th. So we can work around that. We have several options available to us right now that we're looking at, but the rumor that's going around is we're going to cancel 7th and 8th grade athletics, freshman athletics. We're not going to do that. We're going to make sure that we can make it work. We have the 2 gyms here. We'll just have to adjust the schedules and utilize all of the things that are available to us in town, in this community, and as well as possibly outside. We're getting a lot of offers from our neighbors who sometimes we consider our rivals, but they really are our neighbors, and they've been very friendly with offering up anything that we might need to help us out. So we have some plans that we're working in place, but hopefully the roofing project will be finished and we'll be back in the high school.
Thank you. And that is the rumor, and I'm glad you cleared that up. I just have one more question. Since we're all hoping that this is going to be temporary, but once the roofing situation gets settled and they start to pull the bricks off of the building, are they going to have to close portions of the building in order to finish the bricks? Because structurally, you are now making the building possibly unsafe, and to have students, again, be inside. And once they start pulling the bricks off, that is just not going to be a small fix.
No, you're absolutely correct. There is a phasing plan in place for that next piece of the construction. And I don't know if you know this already, but the side of the wall where the stair tower is, that exterior fire exit stair tower has already, those classrooms have been closed off since like last year. So what the plan is that as they begin to do their work around the building, the sections of the building, those classrooms will be closed off. And Mr. Bannon is going to be working with relocating classrooms as we need them as the construction crew works around the building. So to answer your question, yes, there will be classrooms closed off, but we are confident we have enough space to accommodate the move. I'm sorry, school won't be closed? I've not been told that school needs to be closed, just that sections of the building will be closed off while they're working around the building. For example, the stair tower. We have 9 classrooms that have not been in use since like last January. So we can accommodate the space. In all fairness and honesty, the biggest glitches will be when they get around to where the science labs are. And we'll be working with Mr. Morgan on making accommodations for that. But no, we don't have to close the building down when they're doing that brickwork. But section by section, yes, we have to vacate.
Okay, and to go further into that too, so you know, Ms. Wilson, that was raising conversations when they've met. They've always brought in administration, guidance, and so on, discuss the impact on classrooms.
Right, and I honestly, I don't want to get off on a tangent starting to talk about construction, because I did want to focus on what the scheduling issue is for us. That's the purpose of tonight's meeting. But I will hold another meeting just to talk about construction and the update and where we're going to be going forward. So,
I do have a question on another topic over here from a student.
Do you know when Rainbow Express will be starting back up? Because I'm actually loving the students this year, and the students want me back, kind of thing.
All right, terrific question. And as you probably already know, Rainbow Express was closed this week so that we can make plans to reopen it. It will be reopening this coming Monday. We were able to meet with a number of the parents of the toddlers today during school. Ms. McCann met with those parents and filled them in on how we're going to run the program. So Sandy, yes, the kids are coming back. They'll be back on Monday. Okay.
Yes, how you doing? Last week, kids were out of school 4 days. This week, 1. You mentioned that you're going to have them come back in some days that they're gonna be off to make it up, and you said half days. How do you justify losing a full day, make it up for a half day, especially when we're on half-day schedules now? You say until November. It'll go until December. We all know that. So how do you justify that?
What I'm saying to you, what I said, what I meant to say was, the minimum is half-day sessions. There are going to be some full-day sessions that we have to make up. To be very honest with you, the county doesn't like it when you have too many half-day sessions. But I'm just telling you what happens, that I have to actually report to them and tell them how many days that we're making up, which ones I'm proposing are half-day sessions, which ones I'm proposing will be full-day sessions. The reason I mentioned half-day sessions for the February is because I'm dealing with like a legal holiday for like President's Day. I'd like to be able to bring this in, but I understand that there might be some childcare issues for those of you who have children in other districts when they're off. So my objective is to get the days in, and I don't disagree with you. Where I can do full days, I'm doing full days because we need to get back in. But in all honesty, to be realistic, some of those days may have to be half-day sessions.
I have another question over here.
I have 3 questions. First one is, homeroom is at the end of the day. If my kid is absent and I don't get the phone call till 4:30, I'm already at work. When are we gonna be notified if they're sick? If I thought I sent my kid to school, but I leave for work at 7:30 and she doesn't get on the bus until 11, how are we gonna, usually the automated call will come in at like 8. How are us parents gonna know that if you're not doing homeroom until 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
That's a good question, and certainly we can talk to something with the guidance about maybe it can be taken during whatever that first period, those are static minus rotational.
I would wanna know.
Sure, that's a good question.
She missed the bus.
No, thank you for bringing that up. Mhm.
My second question is, if they have, my daughter's on field hockey, say, I don't know, 3 o'clock out of the class, and they're still in the middle of their 3rd class, which would go to 3:07, how are they making up that class?
Well, at some point, don't forget, in the rotation, they're gonna have that 2-hour rotation. I know that probably, I don't know if that makes sense here right now. But you know, certainly, whatever they're gonna be in that class at least for a short amount of time. So, you know, they may be able to get the work that they continue to miss. It might be something that can be posted on the, the Google Classroom, as well. So the one good thing, if there is a positive, like I said, the junior high school, is it 7-8 sports you're talking about? Okay, so we're kind of towards the end, of that. So hopefully, like, we're not talking like the entire season, but certainly we understand your concern, and it was, a fine balance. Do we not run sports? Do we do it? But we felt that it was, somewhat important. So we're towards the end of that fall season. So hopefully it's not too many away games. We're going to keep them in class as long as we possibly can on home games. That's something myself and Mr. Sutton talked about now. So, to minimize that kind of exactly what you're talking about.
Okay, and then the last one is, they have to use the junior high locker room in order to get changed because they're coming from class to go in to whether it's, practice wear or their uniforms. Is the high schoolers going to be in there too? Because I don't particularly feel comfortable with a 12th grader and with my 7th grader.
So for the rest of the field hockey season, if we may have to do that, but we'll make sure that we have the coaches in there and in the locker room as well at that time. If we can make other accommodations for the high school team, we will. We're still working on that.
They would come in dressed.
They could, that's one of the things that we've talked about. Most of the high school student athletes will probably come back to the school from home with their practice gear on and not really have to go into the locker room. But we will have staff in there making sure that if they need to use the bathroom or whatever, and their paths cross, we'll have somebody there.
And logistically too, and I don't know if it can, that can be a discussion with Coach Kaepernick or whoever's in there, because we do have the field hockey team does utilize the back locker room, but we do have the other locker room here too, so if we have to make maybe those. Sure, no, I get it, absolutely. Absolutely.
We have another question over here.
I got a nice easy one. Our high school kids leave early, and this is for athletics. They have to come back to the school for their sports. Some of the JV, not JV, varsity teams go a little bit further. How are some parents getting their kids back to school for their practices? And then we have to pick them up once they're done. My daughter's just getting off a bus in a few minutes.
So nothing can change coming back from a game. If we get back later from the games and it's past the late buses that we're gonna have, that's gonna stay the same. The practices are gonna hopefully end as darkness grows earlier and earlier. Today was at 6:14. They'll be able to make the bus. Practices are gonna get shorter. So they'll be able to make that bus. But getting them back is certainly an issue that we're very concerned about. One of the things that we talked to the bus company about was where they'd be able to make runs to pick them up, and we couldn't make it work at the times to make it work for practices. So what a lot of the teams are doing is within the team, trying to set up carpools with using the team parents and the parents clubs to get the students back here as best they can. And the coaches are going to communicate. The student athlete just absolutely has no way to make it back. We're going to have to figure out what we can do, but they'll be excused from those practices. Right, we'll work that out. We have to make some exceptions to that rule.
We have another question?
If you have a kid that is in the junior high and you have high schoolers, can they share lockers?
So that question came up before, and Mr. Patty, and I think one of the things in the issue of fairness, to say no, because I don't want to run into a situation where, we do, and it's sure we have brothers and sisters that share, but I don't want to say that, okay, a high school, a small percentage of high school kids can share a locker and the vast majority doesn't. So we would ask that in the issue of fairness that they're not sharing those lockers. Plus it goes into a whole set of other things like, is it one person, two person, three person sharing a locker? Who else has a locker combination? So to kind of avoid any of those situations, unfortunately, it is right now, the junior high has lockers and the high school is continuing to work that out. So, okay.
I just have a couple of just quick questions about the junior high school. I know generally this early in the year, we don't really get inclement weather, but if per chance we did, and the junior high school is not due until 11:30, there would be no early closing. I know the junior high school has to.
Right, thanks for bringing that up. We don't anticipate any inclement weather. And no, please. It's almost like, please, why did you bring it up? But here's the thing, we have to be legally in session for 4 hours. So even on the days when I call a delayed opening, we have to make sure that we're in for 4 hours. On a split schedule, if I call a delayed opening, it just doesn't happen. It's like, why bother? So unfortunately, if we have any inclement weather during the time we're on this split session, I'm closed. There's nothing else I can do. And that becomes another day we have to make up. So thanks for bringing it up, but please talk to the weather people and make sure that that's not an issue that we have to worry about. Okay?
Second question is, for the junior high school that's coming in, if they don't have lunch accounts, can they bring lunch and eat lunch during that time? Or
Yeah, certainly we can be flexible with that if they're going to bring something in. Don't forget, they're going to have that buffer time. So certainly if they're more comfortable bringing something in, just like in the high school ran their unit lunch today. So we had, trash receptacles we set up, in the gym, more in the cafeteria here. If they're more comfortable that way, absolutely.
And my last question really quick is for the drop off for the students that cannot be left home alone with the working parent. What is the earliest time they can be dropped off?
Well, the high school staff is going to be on duty in here. Is it the regular time? So the high school staff will be in here at 7:25, 7:30. So that is covered. There is on duty. Granted, it's a long stretch of time, but we understand too that people are going to be in that situation. So we try to make that accommodation. So you'll have a place and there'll be adult supervision. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I just missed what you said about the lunches.
So the question is that we are going to provide like grab and go, because when the junior high school come in, the high schools will get breakfast. The junior high school, we didn't want to not say we're not going to provide food. So her question was if students were comfortable bringing a snack or a lunch from home, can they do that? And I don't have a problem, with that. So they can bring it in, if they're in the gym or the cafeteria, have their snack or their lunch, and then move about their business when they move about. Okay?
I do have another question over here.
Wait, hold on, 1 second, Dr. Bush, just to finish one part B.
I'm almost done. How about our kids that get the free lunches? Will they still be able to get some?
Yeah, because they have their ID cards now. That won't change. Okay? Part C.
I know everybody's time is extremely valuable, but if you need any type of help, volunteers, maybe do the lockers, whichever, put it out there to us. And if we can help you, we will.
Does that include shoveling snow too, or? Okay, but we may call you now if we get bad weather, just so you know. Because we're coming in. All right, no, thank you. Really appreciate it, thank you very much.
One other quick note on lunches too. The cafeteria service did bring a number of the kiosks from the high school over, so that students during that time can really get lunch quickly and efficiently too. To realize that there might be a lot of the junior high school students that are hungry when they get in, but want to make sure they can get them lunch if needed. So they're prepared for that as well.
All right, I have another question over here.
I actually just have a couple of comments. I just want to say, number one, I am a parent of a special ed senior who this isn't easy for. This kid has been through enough, and I have concerns. But I also want to give you guys kudos because I'm actually the head parent for football. A lot of you may or may not know me, and I try to coordinate for 4 teams, and I work full time. And it's not easy, so I can't imagine what you guys are trying to do. Yes, as a parent, there's some things I'm like, oh my goodness, what are you guys doing? But I understand the logistics of it because I've only got 4 football teams, and I'm trying to get all your kids taken care of. But that does lead up to my question. With some of the sporting events coming up, and these kids that are going to now be here in the afternoons, how are we going to make sure these kids, I know for football, I'm doing my best to take care of, but as a parent doing what I'm doing, do you have anything in place for these kids, and can I help in any way, Sunderman?
You mean for food?
For the, I mean, you're
For
starting.
2 away games and back from away games.
Yeah,
The football team does a great job with that, but as of right now, pretty much all the teams do a great job with that. So each team has a parent club like you have, and they're all taking care of those things on their own, so they're doing a great job, and thank you for bringing that up.
Put it out there, if there are any teams that need help, please let me know. I'm here for these kids, so let me know what I can do to help.
Thank you.
I know we have to be in school 180 days. I've been on the website. Neither of my kids, like I have a high school and junior high, they weren't counted for yesterday or today. How do we get counted for? Are we getting counted for those days as being in school?
As of right now, yes. We've spoken with the county superintendent. We explained what Monday and Tuesday looked like. If that changes, I'll certainly be the first one to let you know, but as of right now, okay.
Just going back 1 minute to the inclement weather days. If school has to close early and the high schoolers are sent home, what happens with the middle schoolers? Is it they still count? Do they just lose the day of instruction, or? If school's gonna close early, if it starts snowing while you're in school and you have to close early dismissal, and the high schoolers go home, the middle schoolers go home.
Why are you doing this to me? If I have to close early, it's not going to count. So I'm just hoping I don't have to go there. But it's a very good question. I just wish you had not asked it. But I get it. I do get it. And it's a possibility that, let's say the high school kids did get their day in and the junior high school kids did not. If something happens where I do have to close, then the junior high school kids would have to make up a half day, whatever, that the high school kids would not. That has happened in other districts. Sometimes, I'll just share with you, in another district, we had a water pipe burst in an elementary school, so we had to close that school down for the day. And those teachers and those kids had to come back in to make that time up. So it would be the same concept. Please stop asking questions about the weather. I'm just hoping it's going to be so nice for this time that we have to do this. Believe me, that's the least, that would be the one thing that we don't need to have to deal with. you know, but it's a good question, and honestly, that's what would happen.
I just have a question about the high school students. Traditionally, they have that hour lunch, and that's where they seek extra help or retake tests or quizzes, so on and so forth. I know activities will happen after the junior high school is finished. I'm just wondering if that's also going to be time when teachers would do that.
Actually, sorry, I forgot to go over that in a little more detail. The mentoring period we are still going to have. What I've actually instructed is for all of our high school teachers, as soon as their class periods are over, is to actually report to the junior high media center, and then if the student does need the mentoring time that you're mentioning, they would usually get during lunch, actually assign them a pass. So it's not a student can't just randomly go down to make sure we're keeping track of who's still in the building for that time. So they would get a pass from a teacher and go there, and the teacher will be there. Now, the only negative, though, is we do not have the transportation for them. So students have to arrange their own transportation if they are staying after mentoring, but we are certainly making that available to our students.
This is for the superintendent. I know you don't want construction questions. I just want to know how often will we be updated on the construction so that if we end up dragging into January and February and we want to do something alternative to this school district, we can make decisions. So will it be weekly? Will it be on the website? How can we know what's going on? And I don't mean daily either.
I understand, and here's the thing that on your behalf that bothers me, and that is that up until now, I don't think you've gotten enough information on as frequent a basis as I believe that you should have. And that's just from me. So I would like to think that I can have at least, my plan is to have a meeting starting next week. And perhaps at least every week or every couple of weeks until we know what's happening, while we're on the school session. Once we're back in like full sessions with both of the buildings, I would like to have an interim meeting, at least with parents, so that you don't always have to just wait till the next board meeting to come and ask for questions. So on those alternating weeks, at least have a meeting with you just to give you construction updates and give you an opportunity to ask any questions. So that's my point.
Okay, I think if we have real information instead of the rumors, it'd be easier for all of us to plan.
I agree with you. And I have to tell you honestly, these are the times when I hate social media. And I understand what the phrase fake news is all about, because the things that are coming back to me that I allegedly said and didn't say or did or didn't do, or other people doing and not doing, it's just amazing to me. And so just in the spirit of trying to be transparent and honest with you, that is my plan going forward. To just try to have these regular meetings with you. So you don't have to come to a board meeting. I certainly come to a board meeting. We'd like to have you come, but don't have that be the only time or the only opportunity that you have to ask questions. So I'll do my best to keep you as informed and give you as many regular opportunities to come and meet and discuss your concerns as I can.
I have a question over here.
Hi, I'd like to make a comment and then a proposal for helping out a little bit. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for your professionalism and the way you're handling this. It's got to be ultimately challenging, and you're meeting our needs and you're answering it, you're facing it head on, so thank you very much. And linking with that last question and what I've been hearing, I would make a suggestion of maybe having a special web page that you could keep us updated on, and maybe a technical advisor that could create like a blog link off of that, or hey, we need help with people giving rides to here, or this sporting event needs this, and each blog would have its own little header, and maybe we could communicate back and forth. To think that each person that has a need to communicate is going to be able to do it through a Facebook or something like that. But if we had a home base that someone could manage and it would be an official site, it could be monitored, and that way you could also give us the updates, and that way you could say, this is the official update, this is where we're at right there.
It's like this is not the fake news, this is the real news. Yeah. Thank you, that's a great suggestion. Listen, we're trying to make positive use of social media. And I want to thank all of you who have really actually said that you're willing to step up and help us out with this. It just speaks to me about this sense of community that we have here, and the fact that you are all invested in this along with us. And so I appreciate that. And I do appreciate your suggestions. I think they're all good.
I have Mr. Lauer's been waiting for a while, so.
This is for the AD. We had 2 away games, one at Manchester, one at Jackson, both slated for 3:45. Are we expecting the students to be released somewhere 2:45-ish, 2:30-ish to make those starts?
That's for the freshman team, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we're in communication with Jackson and Manchester. Both of those schools have lights. We're gonna see what we can do with them to push the time of those games back as late as possible and then make that work. That doesn't mean that we won't have to get them out early. And I want to add to something that Mr. Shore said earlier. That would then become, and this is entirely for the freshmen who some are also playing varsity and JV on different sports, and also for the 7th and 8th graders. If you would prefer not to get your student athlete out of school to go to play a game, which is when they might have to get out, then that's your option, and they would clearly stay in school, and we would have to move on for that day without them. And that would not be held against them, or they wouldn't be penalized or anything like that. We totally understand that. And there are sometimes some reasons that clearly, obviously, they would want to stay behind and not be able to play. And that's unfortunate, but that's what we'd have to do. It would be your decision.
I do have another question over here.
Two things. One is, with all of the excess that the teachers are in the pickup and everything else that's going on, and then tying into that, is this going to create a budgetary shortfall? With all of the different, so I know we don't need the trailer, but as an example, the trailer, we had to bring one in. But all the different things that we're doing to accommodate these issues, are we going to have a budgetary shortfall?
I don't know that.
And are the teachers being compensated for their extra time? I know I would want to be. That's why I was asking.
Well, first of all, as far as the teacher staff is concerned, anybody who works above and beyond is compensated, so that would happen. But with our current schedule, that's not happening. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, as far as the budget itself is concerned, I can't answer your question because I don't really know how many. Well, let me just back up. First of all, we can't just go out and get a trailer tomorrow. Okay, there's a whole process involved in getting it approved, especially if we're going to use it for classroom space and all that. So that really is not an option right now unless we're unfortunately in a very serious emergency situation. But to answer your other question, right now, what is potentially going to cost us some money right now are extra buses that we might need to put on for either athletics or for running our kids to the vocational school. I can't answer your question on as to what that's going to really cost, because what I'm hoping is that this is such a short-term fix right now that it's not going to become so cost prohibitive for us to stay in this situation.
I do have another question over here.
Somebody had, in the beginning of the presentation, had mentioned something about homecoming, and also the junior high. The dance has been canceled twice, so will that be made up, or?
So one of the things I did, I actually sat down and spoke with Mrs. Gillespie, one of our class advisors. So we are in the talks about looking to reschedule that. We didn't settle on anything yet, but certainly we know that was brought up, and we know that's an experience that our students, particularly our new 7th grade students, didn't get a chance to enjoy. So we are looking in to dates. The problem we're running into, since it's been canceled, you know, it's kind of running into other things, and so we just have to make sure that if we have a date, the DJ is available. So yes, that was a conversation. So yes, we are possibly looking to reschedule that. Okay. Homecoming is on schedule. I don't want to speak for Mr. Bennett, but homecoming is the 28th, and it is on schedule for the 19th. The tickets are on sale now, and it will be held here at the junior high school gym. Okay?
Yeah, hi. Hi. I just have a question based on, right here, sorry, parent of a junior high. What is your plan B? I understand you're saying November, but actually for me, my child going to half school days for a month is unacceptable. My child needs her education, she's entitled to her education, and I want her back on full-time days. So that being said, what's plan B? You're saying, well, we have to get trailers approved and all this stuff. That should be being done right now, just in case. Because construction, we all know, we're all victims of Sandy and other things here. We know how long that takes. And it's never what they said. It's always 3 times longer. So we need a plan B.
Well, Plan B would be for us to go out for trailers, but I'm hoping that we don't have to do that.
Yeah, but I don't want to be doing it in January. So
I understand that. And I'm also, and listen, nobody here is happy about having to do the split sessions. The most important thing, though, is to try to get this school year in. Well, the school year being in means getting instruction in, okay? So that's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's exactly what my goal is at this point. Okay?
I do have another question over here, and then I think we're winding down with questions.
I know it's probably the least of your worries, but I want to know if the clubs were going to be starting anytime soon. And I know academically we're kind of like missing all the schools, all those days, if they were going to be doing Junior National Honor Society, this inductee soon, like the process.
Well, I'll let Mr. Bennett speak about the high school club, the junior high school club. Now that we've determined that we do have late buses, so yeah, it's going to be business as normal, at least for our club advisors. You know, they don't want to miss that opportunity for anything that they do with their clubs. With that being said, some of the activities and things, you know, we may have to go back to the drawing board. I've been in conversation with a lot of those people because they may need to be tweaked a little bit. But certainly we don't want to, any of the students to miss out on any of those things. And as far as the National Junior Honor Society, you know, that happens usually probably in late spring, late April or May. So hopefully by that time, knock on wood, and no snow, that, you know, we're back in the next running test normal. So, yeah.
And as far as the high school activities go, that's something we're still working on. So obviously with the transportation schedule, that does present a hardship for us to continue with all our activities, maybe afterwards, but it's something we're still trying to work on, trying to get our answers for that one.
I'm sorry to ask another question, but when you were setting up the times for the classes, was there any consideration taken into maybe shortening the time of the classes to get more of the subjects in a day? I go back to the time before PInelands started. Okay, we had split sessions at Southern. It worked. We had all our classes done. The juniors and seniors were in the morning. The freshmen and sophomore were in the afternoon. We had all our classes taken care of. We had maybe 35-minute classes, but we got all our subjects in. Has anything like that been thought of for this, so this way the kids could get more of the classes on a more consistent basis?
Can I answer that question? We did discuss many options in terms of scheduling when we were trying to figure out what would happen with the split sessions. One of the things that was decided was that with the longer periods, we were trading the quantity of time that teachers were going to see their students with the quality of time. Because what happens when you have the shorter periods is there's a introductory period where the students are coming in, they have to kind of put their math hats on, and then at the end of the period, they have to clean up the things that they're doing and move on to the next class. I'll use science, for example, when they're doing labs, when they have a shorter period, setting up and cleaning up for a lab in a shortened period like that, 35 minutes, can take more time than they actually get working on the lab. So by holding those hour blocks, it allows the students to continue to work through some of those things that they might only be able to do in 2 days on a normal schedule. They're going to be able to get in 1 day because they're not having some of those, set up and clean up times. Gym would be another example of that, when they're taking time at the beginning of the end of the schedule to get ready for gym. It eliminates that, so it does allow them more time to actually work on the content and focus on that within their classrooms.
Of a class, that would give you minimum 2.5 hours for that week, for that class, where if you only have that class twice a week, you're
I'm gonna, we have to sort of close out this main part of the meeting because we have a second meeting in A103, with Mrs. Ward, for any of our parents of our special needs students, and I know people are anxious to leave to go to that. Maybe one or two questions before we close for tonight? Yeah.
When do we say, okay, let's go?
Listen, the only thing that I can tell you is for now, this is what we're doing, but if there's a concern that this is going to be extended, I certainly have to look at another option. I'm certainly, I don't like split sessions myself. Exactly. Right. We will know. We will know. All right, thank you. Everyone, listen, thank you so much for your participation this evening. Please feel free to call me, Mr. Bannon, Mr. Shore, if you have any questions as we move through this process. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.